Hi, welcome to the Bruce Channel. I'm Bruce, your host, concierge, and tour guide. And while this will not be the longest episode ever, nor the most diverse, it's nevertheless one that I will find hard to forget. Now, first we'll take a look back at some topics previously discussed, and truly, the looks back will be brief. And then I'll tell you a bit about the week just past. Like anyone, over my lifetime I've had good weeks and bad weeks, and probably most of them fall somewhere in the middle. Largely forgettable. This one will not be forgotten. Oh, and better, it was a good one. I am not going to rant about GMOs today or spend much time talking about glyphosate. That's the active ingredient in Roundup. I've talked about the issue for the last several shows, and of course you can watch our previous shows at tinyurl.com/BruceChannel. And if you're curious to learn more than I can possibly bring to the table, I would encourage you to visit justlabellit.org. But if you're a parent or a grandparent or a wannabe parent, here's some scary news. A study found that if either parent had been exposed to glyphosate in the 2 years prior to conception, the child's chances of developing pediatric brain cancer doubled. Think about it. All right, last week I showed the map from Distractify.com. I mentioned some of the strange statistics that I found. Remember, all of these, most of, are per capita. So I mentioned last week that South Carolina was said to have the most bad drivers. And aside, I quoted what it said, but privately had doubts. I've lived in 9 cities in 5 states. I lived in Tampa, Florida for 1 year, not that long. The only place I have ever lived where I saw a car on its roof was in Tampa, and in that 1 year I saw it twice. Whatever. Anyway, I went to Augusta, Georgia this past week. I drove through South Carolina. I didn't see that many bad drivers, but the one I did encounter, he could make the Pope sound like a sailor. All right, 2-lane interstate, speed limit 65, and of course the actual flow of traffic is more like 70, 73, something like that. Now, South Carolina has plenty of steep hills, and semis typically lose some steam. So this idiot driving a Hyundai stayed in the left lane, not keeping up with the flow of traffic. So he's making anyone who'd like to pass him make the less than ideal tactic of passing on the right. But when you do that, there's a semi going slowly, and he would speed up, and with the trucks, you couldn't do it. Jerk. I finally did manage to get around him, but then we came upon a mile of crawling 1-lane traffic due to bridge repair. You know, when they say left lane closed ahead. Now I'm responsible, so I see that and I move over pretty quickly, but you know how the guys try and cheat and get up there? That's him, and as fate would have it, he ended up directly in front of me. When we finally cleared the construction zone, he immediately went to the left, but I had him because I got a pretty quick car and I knew I could accelerate a lot faster than he, and I did. After I was again and permanently in front of him, you know what I could hear in my mind? Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. For most of my adult life, I weighed a little over 100 pounds, not much more than in this picture taken when I was about 17 and considering becoming a jockey. But as is often true, once I crossed into my 40s, extra weight came, and it stayed. For years I tried to lose, instead gained, and ended up 153 pounds. And I'm embarrassed to show you this video. Then I learned that it isn't about calories and exercise, but instead it's about what you eat. You might say, sure, ice cream makes you fat. But there were surprises, things like orange juice not being such a wise choice if you're trying to lose weight. So I just made some basic changes to what I ate, not how much, and the weight just fell off. Now, nearly 3 years later, it is still off. And don't misunderstand, I'm eating foods I like, not bamboo shoots. Friends ask me how I did it so often, I put it in a book. It's available as an ebook for all platforms, and the print edition is available at barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. Hey, you can shrink too. So what's in Augusta, Georgia? Aside from the hallowed ground of Augusta National, I was privileged to work on a movie. It's called Tom's Missed Call. Now, I'd had the script ahead of time, of course, but when I saw exactly how all the scenes fit together, I think we may have made a hilarious movie. Yeah, I know, the audience will ultimately determine whether or not it's funny. But as we work through it, with timing and lines evolving, my own belief is it's going to be very funny. The premise is simple. Tom sees a voicemail message on his phone, but when he listens, he can't exactly figure out what it is. It's very muddled. He thinks he was butt dialed, but each of his co-workers interprets it differently, so it's a mystery. Now, each scenario that they described is maybe plausible, certainly not probable, well, maybe probable. The real kicker, though, is the ending, which, of course, I'm not going to reveal here. And I had so much fun. I played Eric, who is an eccentric. You could also say weirdo, but I prefer eccentric. Again, I get to play a guy from Great Britain. And sometimes I hit a pretty good British accent. But see, Eric is excitable. And as his excitement ebbs and flows, sometimes he sounds more Irish, and sometimes he's got a bit of a Scottish brogue. I imagined him as a blend of Bernard Fox, the character Bernard Fox played on Hogan's Heroes, Colonel Crittenden, and Lord John Marlbury, a character from The West Wing. Throw in some John Cleese. Now, I don't know how close I got to the blend I imagined, but it sure was fun. And I am honored, is more like it really, to have been cast. It's a production of Brighton Entertainment, LLC, and even if you've not heard of them, they deliver quality. You probably know of the Tuskegee Airmen, represented in at least two movies that I know of, one of them called, cleverly, The Tuskegee Airmen. More recently, from Lucasfilm, Red Tails. Well, here's something cool. Brighton Entertainment does a lot of music videos and commercials and documentaries. Following the release of Red Tails, they made a documentary called In Their Own Words, The Tuskegee Airmen. And you know who wrote to thank them? George Lucas. That's cinema royalty, you know? By the way, if you would like to watch it, it is available on DVD from Amazon and Walmart and probably lots of other places. I enjoyed it. I will keep you posted vis-a-vis the progress of Tom's Missed Call. And I still have a couple of brief solo scenes to shoot, short ones, 15, 20 seconds. And then, of course, there is the editing, the post-production. Nevertheless, it was a thrill to be a part of it, and I hope I can work with Brighton Entertainment again. I can right now show you some pics. Here is director Brian Williams watching the monitor. Here are Brian and director of photography Denton Atkinson. Tony Bernard was Tom, and he and I are rehearsing a scene. Notice the boom microphone way at the top of the picture. This is Chantel Wheeler, who played Clarice. I don't think she can time travel, but Jeremy Carr plays Chuck, a very easygoing ex-Marine. He and I go out for a leisurely drive. Here the shot is being set. Notice the green screen. And this is makeup artist extraordinaire Susan Willis. Now, whenever I'm not in a scene or on a stage, that is, actually working, wherever I am, my eyes always tend to favor a particular shape. The ability to converse is definitely a bonus, but maybe not necessary. Anyway. Finally, there is no truth to the rumor that anyone is considering a remake of Stephen King's The Shining. On the other hand, if anyone would like to consider it, here's Eric. Okay, one last thing. It's a rerun from a few weeks ago. I'd mentioned that if you know any teenage drivers, to caution them about spring and the end of the school year and feeling one's oats, and the fact that every spring promising young lives are cut short because of a minute or two of bad judgment. It happens. I know of one happening already in a suburb of Cleveland. Two teenagers, seniors I think, at a private school. They were smart kids, popular, decided to feel the thrill of going very fast. And what I talked about sadly manifest. I repeat, if you know teenage drivers, talk to them. You might get them past that minute or two of bad judgment. That's all it takes. All right, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed. As I've said from time to time, if you live next door to Steven Spielberg or Francis Ford Coppola or their housekeepers, have them tune in. And meanwhile, I hope your upcoming week is the best one you've ever had.